The Biden administration is just absolutely in tatters in terms of its popularity in the U.S., its global standing. The U.S. in general has never been lower.
Never been lower.
But people in the West don't understand Vladimir Putin. They don't understand the leadership of Russia. Maybe you could close on the Ukraine-Russia segment on helping people understand why Vladimir Putin's leadership was so critical. Like, what is it about Putin, Russian leadership at this moment that made Russia up to the task of standing tall amid these, what in any other period would have been seen as formidable, if not just absolutely terrifying odds?
Mm-hmm. The problem is that, Danny, the 24/7 non-stop brainwashing across NATO stand is absolutely brutal. I think I mentioned to all of you guys before, for instance, when I'm in Paris, I hold up in my home. I have nobody to talk to, literally. My best friends deserted me because of course, they know what I think, they read what I write, and for them it's absolutely impossible to understand, because these are intelligent people. Well, including some of my friends who work at the European Commission, but that's even worse. These people actually redact sanctions against Russia, so they will never understand a free dialogue with somebody who tries to understand what Russia is doing, which is the case of our case as analysts, in fact. So, I have been accused on and on and on and on of being a Putinista paid by the Kremlin, the same shit. When at the time, during the war on terror, I was accused of being pro-Al-Qaeda. And this, with many analysts, friends of mine, is absolutely the same thing when we are in the West. And that's why we're fed up. That's why we're here. That's why we go to Asia, where you can have, or to South America, where you can have an actual decent conversation, civilized education with different points of view, where divergence is normal, but people don't take it personally, or they try to cancel you, which is the case now in Europe. Just an extra example for you guys. Todd was a miracle. One of the smaller public channels, TV channels, TV5, TV5, which is broadcast all over the world. They invited him for an interview. His interview broke all records, more than 1 million views and all that. And in his interview, he was forced to tell his audience, please stop bullshitting about Putin. Pay attention to what he's saying, what he's doing. Pay attention to what's happening inside Russia, because it's absolutely impossible. If you live in England, in France, in Italy, in Spain, etc., you turn on the 8 o'clock news at night, it's basically rabid Russophobia, one day after another. Same with mainstream media. And if you read mainstream media that used to be at least relatively decent in the past, like The Economist or the Financial Times, it's even worse, in fact, because it's Russophobia plus non-stop warmongering. So no wonder you see well-educated liberal professionals across the West basically regurgitating what comes over here 24/7. It's absolutely brutal. For instance, Glenn Deason, who wrote this excellent book on Eurasia and on the war in Ukraine, he has a tough time in Norway, especially because before that he had a stint here at the Higher School of Economics. He was working very close to Sergei Karaganov. So when he went back to Norway and he starts publishing, oh my God, they went after him, they went after his family, he even started considering moving out of Norway. He didn't, because the university where he teaches, University of South Norway, is relatively progressive. So they didn't try to cancel him, at least, But this happens with, the best Italian analysts and historians or political scientists, they are marginalized. They simply cannot be published on mainstream Italian media. They have they publish on small Telegram channels or websites, etc. So it's relentless. It's relentless. When you are in Europe, you feel that you are in the middle of oligarchic totalitarianism completely. In fact, this is Todd's expression. In fact, was oligarchic liberalism. I prefer to use totalitarian liberalism because it is totalitarian. If you don't toe the line, they will do everything to cancel you. There's absolutely no question about that. And even if you are, in the case of Todd, an extremely respected intellectual, they only had to talk about, and most of the mainstream media didn't. In fact, for instance, Le Monde, they gave the review of Todd's book to an absolute idiot. And in the title of the review was already editorializing. The title, you had the word conspiracy, and you had, between commas, Russian propaganda. It's already in the title. And this was a newspaper that used to be the newspaper of record in the West in the 70s, Le Monde. And now it's a sub-gutter rag, in fact. So it's very hard then. It's very hard to go against it. Very, very hard. And across the global south, at least, you can, it's fantastic. You will Cuban media, Nicaraguan media, Chilean media, for that matter. And you have absolutely first-class analysis. In Southeast Asia, the same thing. In Indonesia, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So you have to leave the West to have a civilized conversation nowadays. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, who would have thought? Now, lastly, I like your comments on a emerging story, in this, and we'll close with China. So, according to Reuters, the United States has been creating a secret stash of sorts of military armaments in Australia, using military operations and war games with Australia to ostensibly prepare for war with China, vis-a-vis Taiwan. Now, of course, the news lately with regard to China has been collapse. China's economy is collapsing.
Oh, it's totally collapsed.
It's
yeah.
Despite 5.2% economic growth in GDP terms in 2023, China is collapsing. Real estate, all of this, China's economy is shrinking comparatively to the United States. But China has made also some major headways in high tech, has become the top car exporter around the world. So, with all of this said, Pepe, your reactions to where China is right now, especially vis-a-vis this growing build-up to war that the United States is still preparing for, despite the fact that it might not be making headlines as some of the other entanglements that the neocons find themselves in.
The Chinese don't even pay attention to it anymore, Danny. Seriously. It's fascinating. I am a part of China's writers group where some fantastic scholars contribute all the time, and some of them are wonderful. They are very witty, very sarcastic. They are all fluent in English, by the way. And they say, look, nobody cares anymore. We don't even pay attention anymore. Chinese are concentrated on this technological development, different variations of the official program which used to be called Made in China 2025, which you remember that caused Trump to have fits one after another and then impose more sanctions. And then the Chinese simply stopped talking about Made in China 2025, and they kept doing exactly the same thing that they were doing before, which is to develop 10 different areas in high tech, which they plan to be number one or at least among the top 3 by 2025, next year. In fact, everything, artificial intelligence, quantum physics, Internet of Things, you name it. So they don't care. They kept growing last year. They have a shadow banking crisis. They have a real estate crisis. But it's going to be solved eventually. They are that summit last year of the Belt and Road Summit in Beijing. They are reactivating projects of Belt and Road. They are coordinating projects of Belt and Road with the Eurasia Economic Union as well. Something that was already said many times on the record explicitly by both Putin and Xi. And when they see what happened these last few days in the United States, and it's very easy for them to draw the conclusions. Who's on the other side? Senator Tom Cotton interviewing the head of TikTok. Have you ever been part of the Communist Party? Senator, I am a Singaporean. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party of China? Senator, I am a Singaporean. There you go. You have to teach geography and history to the barbarians, which is my Chinese friends always say, but they will never learn history and geography. So they don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care, and especially because they are focused on, and now they are also focused on BRICS. This is they see that with Russian presidency, there will be a lot of work done on BRICS as well, and they want to be part of all the major decisions as well. And the wars, from their point of view, they are far away. The wars are in barbarian lands. They have nothing to do with that. As long as it doesn't interfere too much with their commerce and trading, which in the case of the Houthis in Yemen, your Chinese ships, super cool. You have free passage here. Obviously, because in this case, West Asia, part of the global South, they totally understand where China is coming from and what China is doing. So in a nutshell, Danny, it's a barbarian affair, really, from their point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to definitely play what you referenced with Tom Cotton, perhaps because it's actually quite astounding.
It is astounding.
Because as you said, barbarian land. I mean, this felt like something out of HUAC from the first Cold War. Just an absolute. I was shocked. I thought this video was old. I thought this was back during the initial period when
I thought
TikTok was coming under investigation.
Danny, I thought it was a spoof. I watched it twice because I said, "Wow, this is a brilliant spoof." No, it's real.
It is real. All right, let's play it really quick.
You said today, as you often say, that you live in Singapore. Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Do you have a Singaporean passport?
Yes, and I served my military for two and a half years in Singapore.
Do you have any other passports from any other nations?
No, Senator.
Your wife is an American citizen. Your children are American citizens.
That's correct.
Have you ever applied for American citizenship?
No, not yet.
Okay. Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again, I'm Singaporean.
Let me. You said today, as you often say.
So
it's extraordinary.
He obviously hasn't read the guidelines for becoming a member of the Communist Party of China. You can't just join.
Never. Exactly. This answers all our questions, doesn't it, Danny? This is the people the Chinese are dealing with.
Exactly, and this comes also as I like to play this too. Nancy Pelosi, she has called all of those calling for a ceasefire in Gaza a part of Putin's army. And she also had a run-in with protesters. I believe these are protesters from Code Pink. She had a run-in with these protesters where she indicated that these protesters were, speaking of China, headquartered in China, that they should go back to their headquarters in China. I want to share this for you, and then you can get your reaction to this in terms of its. Here we go.
Most of your constituents want stop the genocide, stop the Holocaust.
Democrats want the ceasefire. The Democrats want the ceasefire. The Democrats want the ceasefire.
So go back to China where your headquarters is what
Where's
she
your
said at the end.
headquarters?
Go back to China where your headquarters is.
Is that that horrible place that has concentration camps in Xinjiang? Is that
So,
no,
so
let's
this
not
is
waste our time with that. Then, well,
you know, and what you said about China not wasting their time, I mean, this is the thing about China, is that China is going about its business. And I think this
it's
is what,
business.
and maybe you can comment on the global significance, because Russia now is trading in yuan primarily as its foreign currency. And you mentioned China being, you know, there's the great meme of, you know, of a card where it says can pass, can't pass, and it's in terms of the Red Sea, and it's Chinese ships can pass, and of course U.S. Israeli linked ships cannot pass. Talk about the respect, because this is what many people don't know. The respect. If a nation was truly declining, as the United States says, China would not be garnering this kind of respect and influence, and be able to not only circumvent U.S. war plans, but also grow in terms of its just linkages around the world. It has been astonishing that despite the rhetoric, China has been just growing enormously in terms of its relationships and its influence around the world.
I think there's a very, very interesting cultural element to this whole process. It's as if different cultures across the global south, they are understanding the basics of the precepts of Confucianism, which is a conservative ideology essentially, but it's the basic tenets are all converging towards harmony in social relations, respect, and that includes mutual respect for the elders as well, and social stability. Basically, when you go through some of those Xi Jinping speeches, and through most of Wang Yi is saying all over the world, it's very Confucianist. And I would say that, for instance, somebody in Brazil, somebody in Nigeria, somebody in Indonesia, somebody in Malaysia, instinctively they understand that this is a civilization that wants to engage with you, the famous Xi Jinping peoples to peoples exchange, but in a mutually respected manner, which is, and promoting social stability for everyone, and that fabulous concept that they came up with to define much of the Belt and Road projects, in fact, which is community of a shared future for mankind. Of course, when you have this discussion in Hong Kong, which I had a lot with people in Hong Kong who hate China, they say, nah, can you trust the Chinese, a community? They don't they think about their own community, shared future. They don't want to share. They want to come here and gobble up everything that you have. But this is Hong Kong. When you have this conversation across the world, people understand instinctively, no, they want to do trade with us. They are tough negotiators, of course, but they are fair. You know, you can talk to them. You can negotiate with them. They don't interfere with what you do. You know, they just want to do business with you, essentially. And there is an extra element, which Xi and Wang Yi are always trying to, which is this, the multipolar world we're driving towards and we're trying to shape is based on mutual respect. And especially, no culture is superior to others. So all that intrinsically is the extreme opposite of exceptionalism, and the forever wars mindset. And I would say that this is a key element to drive respect towards China from, virtually every latitude, And in the case of Russia, Russia is, in terms of Russian diplomacy, which also stresses mutual respect and a new order based on equality among sovereign entities. People also instinctively understand that this is the absolute opposite to what they're living now, or they have been living for the past 75 years. So these cultural elements are, I would say, absolutely essential to when we analyze let's say, the relative success of Russia and China globally. And especially when people in all these different latitudes are comparing to what the empire has to offer, or has been offering, or has to offer, especially now at the moment where they have less than zero to offer, except setting fire to here, there, and everywhere, right?
Yeah, and maybe lastly, Pepe, China's defense ministry called NATO a walking war machine at the World Economic Forum, which we didn't even get into, the World Economic Forum. But the World Economic Forum, NATO's Jens Stoltenberg tried to defend NATO's buildup as a counterweight in Asia. And that's been quite we've been covering, of course, these encirclement campaigns for years. But NATO, of course, has lately, over the last few years, targeted China. But I've always wondered, Pepe, or at least I've talked about it here. I'm wondering your thoughts. What could NATO possibly do in Asia? I'm not seeing much headway, but I'm wondering, I'm just curious about NATO as an institution, so discredited for its failures in Ukraine, is now looking to expand in Asia against China. It doesn't seem like that would end well.
Danny, don't forget that NATO was in Asia. NATO got kicked out of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a key crossroads of Central Asia and South Asia. Afghanistan is in the heartland, the historic heartland of Asia. So Mackinder would be one of the first to talk about the importance of Afghanistan. And no wonder Afghanistan was always important, because it's in the heart of the heartland for us. And we all know what happened to NATO in Afghanistan. And even worse than that, not if this humiliation in Afghanistan was not enough, now we have that piece of Norwegian wood saying that China is getting close to her. It's not NATO that is getting close to China. It's China that is threatening because they are coming close to us. So this idiot also is another one who failed geography class in Norway when he was a kid, right? What is all that? Of course, desperation, because NATO essentially, as we know, at least for the past 20, since Yugoslavia, in fact, for the past 24, 25 years, it's a global Robocop. It's why I call it at the time, when I was writing at the time about NATO, I was already defining it as a global Robocop. And I followed all those bloody NATO meetings year after year during the 2000s. All of them. I remember many of them, Lisbon, you name it, And they have been conceptualizing the global role of NATO for at least 25 years, the past 25 years. It's not going to change, of course. Whatever stupid Scandinavian they're going to have for NATO Secretary General, or even much worse. Can you imagine if we have Ursula von der Leyen as the next NATO Secretary General? She wants. So this is not going to change. This is not going to change. And of course, because the directives always come from Washington, and the real war is against China, NATO, real war, the next NATO real war is going to be against China, inevitable. But that does not mean that the war in Ukraine they are going to forget that there is a war in Ukraine. And this is what all of us are very worried about. When you look at this 50 billion euro that was approved yesterday in Brussels, because they managed basically to blackmail Orban with this mechanism that, okay, every year we review, and depending on the results, and then the next tranche comes next year. So they approved 50 billion euros for 4 years. It's very similar to the package that crash test dummy is trying to negotiate in the US, right? In the US, it's $60 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So instead of getting the American package, they got the EU package, which is almost the same amount over 4 years, of course. And the most important thing is that most of it is loans. And these loans will have to be paid. Yes. And obviously those hryvnias, those bloody hryvnias, you cannot even buy a popsicle. Can you imagine? Repay 33 billion euros that have to be repaid. 17 are grants, aid grants or whatever, you know. And it was very interesting because this week, some guys with a little bit of a brain at the French parliament, they start doing the math, and they say, oh, wait a minute. France contributes 16% of the EU budget. This is 8 billion euros. So the French taxpayers are giving 8 billion euros to country 404 instead of giving to their agricultural workers who were, as we speak, in front of the parliament in Brussels and in front of the largest wet market in the world in Rungis, outside of Paris, blocking the highways all the way to Paris, saying, look, we cannot take it anymore. And those 8 billion euros would make a lot of difference for these people. I know.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.